The Predalien is an abomination, the hybrid offspring of a xenomorph implanted in a Yautja host. Needless to say, the Predalien combines the most terrifying traits of both species, and the final product is a huge, dreadlocked monster that has fascinated and horrified fans through numerous appearances in movies, comics, and games. Interestingly, the Predalien was first imagined in the mid-90s concept art by illustrator Dave Dorman, and it made its first appearance in Dark Horse's Aliens vs. Predator duel comic. Later, it made its first appearance in live action as a chest-burster in the 2004 movie Alien vs. Predator, only to reappear as the center of attraction in the sequel, that is, Aliens vs. Predator Requiem. Interestingly enough, the AVP Requiem crew even nicknamed the creature Chet, after a character from Weird Science, to keep it a secret during production. But we're not really here for tidbits, are we? So I'll cut to the chase. In this video, we're going to explore the Predalien's bizarre biology and anatomy in as great detail as possible, but we will also explore its intelligence and behavior. Before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now let's begin. Anatomy and appearance. Physically, the Predalien is pretty much a behemoth, roughly 9 to 10 feet tall in adulthood, with a heavy muscular build that not just rivals, but exceeds its predator host in size. Its exoskeleton is densely armored and ridged like a xenomorph's, but with a bulked-up upper body, especially a broad chest and shoulders. Of course, this is a trait that the Predalien adopts from its host's robust physique. The creature's skin coloration skews yellowish tan with black mottling, which is pretty different from the pure jet black of human-spawned xenomorphs. This cheated pigmentation was a deliberate design choice in AVP Requiem to help audiences spot the hybrid in dimly lit scenes. In short, the Predalien looks every bit the part of an alien on steroids, an 80-20 fusion of alien and predator, according to the creature's designers. Head and face. The Predalien's head is a marriage of its parent species, if the marriage was between 2 dominatrixes. You know, all things brutal and crazy. The Predalien retains the elongated, domed xenomorph skull, but with an obvious change. The front portion of its crown is translucent, and you can see a predator-like skull with hollow eye sockets beneath. Sprouting from the sides of its face are the unmistakable predator mandibles, scaled up and integrated into the alien jaw structure. These 4 separated mandibles frame the creature's mouth and can extend outward to play with prey's heads when attacking. When I say play with, I mean crush or destroy. Inside the maw lurks the classic xenomorph pharyngeal jaw. In other words, the inner stabbing tongue, and it comes complete with metallic teeth. So yes, the Predalien still has that biomechanical second mouth for puncturing skills. The combination gives the hybrid a lethal bite, no puns intended. I mean, the mouth area is multi-jawed, multi-fanged, and capable of disgorging something far worse, but more on that later. To further distinguish its silhouette from predator, or regular xenomorph drones for that matter, the Predalien develops a cranial crest at the back of its head, which is basically a ridged, crown-like structure somewhat similar to a queen alien's crest. And dangling around its head and shoulders are a predator's signature dreadlocks, dozens of thick, rope-like appendages that sway as the creature moves. The people behind the scenes actually insisted on the dreadlocks to ensure viewers could instantly tell who's who in battles. Unlike ornamental predator dreads, the Predalien's dreadlocks are organic in nature, fleshy, dark appendages grown from the head. Interestingly, some of these were brought to life using repurposed alien tail molds during production design. Limbs and build. A Predalien's limbs are powerfully built. Its long and sinewy arms end in enlarged 6-fingered hands tipped with sharp claws. For the movie, the creature's hands were deliberately sculpted larger than an ordinary alien's to emphasize its strength. These claws can shred through prey and even punch through concrete without breaking a sweat. That is, if xenomorphs sweat at all. The legs are thick and digitigrade, which allows the alien to rear up to its full height or drop to all fours when charging, kind of like a Praetorian. In AVP Requiem, suit actor Tom Woodruff Jr., who plays the Predalien, wore enhancements to cheat the proportions. He wore a lengthened head and enlarged hands, making the Predalien's upper body seem massive, while the legs appeared somewhat shorter. On film, the creature is mainly shot from the waist up to maintain this enormous profile. Overall, its stance and movement combine the agility of a xenomorph with the power of a predator. Best of both worlds. Tail. Like all xenomorphs, the Predalien has a long bladed tail, which is surely a spindly whip, but it serves more purposes than a spindly whip. This thing is a thick, muscular cable of vertebrae and sinew, much bulkier and longer than a human-spawned drone's tail, which is obvious since almost everything about a Predalien seems to be bigger than that of human-spawned xenos. The tail's tip ends in a multi-pronged blade. Not exactly, but somewhat similar to a predator's wrist blades or a scorpion's stinger. This tail can be used as a lethal slashing weapon or an impaling harpoon. In the AVP Requiem creature suits, two tail types were interchangeably used. The first one was a floppy, whippable tail for sweeping motions, and the second was a rigid, self-supporting tail for scenes where the Predalien's tail needed to hold itself aloft or impale victims. Skin and other traits. The Predalien skin or exoskeleton has a rough biomechanical texture. Its hide appears waxy and ridged, with layered armor plates over a muscular substructure. One thing to note here is that the creature's blood is still molecular acid, but observers in AVP Requiem noted a greenish tinge to its blood, which was likely inherited from the luminous green blood of Yautja. Even its body's electromagnetic signature is different. Predator biomasks display the Predalien's heat profile as a bright yellow, which is in contrast to the usual neon green of other xenos. Now, this means that the hybrid runs hot, or metabolizes energy uniquely. This could also be possible because the Predalien had recently molted into an adult form from its chest-burster form, and we know that the xenos need to expend unimaginable amounts of energy to become adults. I mean, it's only because they reach adulthood so rapidly. Most of the time, it happens within a few hours. Intelligence, cunning hybrid instincts. Despite its intimidating predator-like physique, the Predalien's intelligence is fundamentally xenomorphic, as in it's driven by primal instincts, but there are intriguing remnants of predator-like behavioral quirks. In general, a Predalien demonstrates the same level of cunning as a high-caste xenomorph, with some extra viciousness thrown in. In AVP Requiem, the hybrid picks strategic targets, for example, sneaking onto a predator scout ship and sabotaging it from within, and adapts quickly to new environments. It showed enough wit to stow away on a departing ship and ambush its Yautja captors at the opportune moment, effectively causing a crash that unleashed it on Earth. This only goes on to say that it's essentially a creature that's capable of patience and opportunism during a hunt. Furthermore, once loose in the small town of Gunnison, the Predalien zeroed in on a high-value breeding ground, a hospital, to rapidly build its brood, which is nothing but a shrewd and horrifying tactic to maximize its species' spread. Predator instincts, trophies, and habits. Fascinatingly, some Predaliens display predominantly predator instincts such as trophy taking and victim mutilation. Incidents from expanded lore describe Predaliens that rip skulls and spines from their kills, and some are known to skin victims much like a predator would. In fact, AVP Requiem originally had scenes, which were later cut from the final film, that depicted the Predalien skinning predators it killed on the ship, stringing up their flayed bodies as grisly ornaments. The 2010 Aliens vs. Predator video game likewise depicts a lone Predalien, nicknamed the Abomination, tearing out a human's skull and spine for sport. These behaviors strongly indicate genetic memory. The creature inherits an urge to perform predator-like rituals, even though it doesn't truly understand them. Unlike a true Yautja, a Predalien isn't collecting trophies out of honor or culture. It has no concept of honor. It's more like a primal instinct or habit it can't explain. For example, a Predalien might rip off a victim's head and drop it, not keeping the trophy so much as impulsively emulating the predator instinct. This makes the hybrid even more unpredictable. It kills not just to feed or propagate, but sometimes seemingly for the visceral thrill written in its genes, for the sport and thrill of the hunt that once defined its life. How long does it take to reach adulthood? The Predalien's biology follows the standard xenomorph life cycle with a few ghastly changes, of course. Like any other xeno, it begins its life as a chest burster implanted by a facehugger into a host, in this case, a predator host. Once the facehugger's embryo gestates, the infant Predalien erupts from the host's chest cavity, typically already exhibiting small predator-esque features. The chest burster seen at the end of AVP 2004 had miniature mandibles, foreshadowing the hybrid to come. Gestation appears to be as rapid as other alien strains. In Scar Predator's body, the Predalien embryo matured to bursting in a matter of hours post-infection. Upon birth, the Predalien chest burster grows to adulthood alarmingly fast. In AVP Requiem, it reached full size by the time the Predator ship crashed on Earth. This accelerated growth cycle is consistent with xenomorph biology, which often hand-waves how a tiny worm becomes a 10-foot biomechanical terror so quickly. There's no indication the Predator DNA slowed or altered the maturation rate. If anything, the resulting creature was larger and hungrier, requiring substantial food to fuel its growth. A reproductive method more gruesome than the regular xeno-reproduction. Where the Predalien's biology truly breaks the mold is in its reproductive method. The creature in AVP-R essentially introduced a new phase in the alien life cycle, often called the belly burster method by fans for its grotesque results. Instead of developing into a queen that lays eggs, the Predalien had the ability to impregnate hosts directly without eggs or facehuggers. It did this via a specialized adaptation of its inner mouth. The inner jaw could extend as a fleshy ovipositor tube, allowing the Predalien to regurgitate multiple embryos straight down a victim's throat. In other words, the Predalien turned its tongue into a living syringe, pumping several xenomorph larvae into a host's stomach in one horrific kiss. Each such implantation could yield up to 5 xenomorph offspring per host, far more efficient than the 1 facehugger, 1 chest burster ratio of the usual cycle. The unfortunate hosts incubated these embryos in their body cavity. The developing chest bursters chewed their way out through the host's abdomen, hence belly bursters. In the film, we see the Predalien employ this tactic in the Gunnison Hospital. It corners sedated pregnant women and forcibly vomits its embryonic brood down their throats, resulting in an explosion of multiple young aliens from each mother's belly a short time later. This method bypassed the egg and facehugger stage entirely, essentially making the Predalien a walking egg factory in its own right. The origins of this reproductive ability have been subject to debate. Even the filmmakers gave contradictory explanations. One theory presented by the people behind the scenes is that the Predalien was a young queen, not yet able to lay eggs, so it evolved a stopgap method to propagate the species when alone. Nature finds a way, as Colin Strauss put it. In the absence of a hive, a lone alpha alien will find some way to reproduce. This aligns with the idea of the Predalien being a pre-queen phase. Given time, it might have matured into a full queen with an ovipositor, but in the meantime, it could still spawn a brood through direct implantation. Another explanation floated by the crew is that this was perhaps a random side effect of the Predator's DNA influencing the xenomorph biology. In other words, something about Yautja genetic material triggered an aberrant reproductive capability in the hybrid. In-universe, there's no definitive answer, and the film leaves it unexplained, much like the mysterious egg morphing from the original Alien movie. Oh, and we've already done an entire video on egg morphing. I suggest you check it out. What we do know is that no other known xenomorph cast has shown this exact ability, the ability to impregnate. It appears unique to the Predalien seen in Requiem. Early drafts even had it using an ultrasound-like vision to specifically seek out pregnant hosts. In fact, a scene of the Predalien seeing a fetus inside a woman was filmed but later cut. Ultimately, whether it's a quirk of being a predator hybrid or a natural queen in progress power, the result is the same. The Predalien can single-handedly jumpstart a hive in record time, making it one of the most biologically dangerous xenomorph variants ever encountered. The 80-20 formula. Beyond reproduction, the Predalien shares all the host-influenced traits one might expect from the alien's DNA reflex. Xenomorphs take on characteristics of their host species, and in the case of a predator host, that means the hybrid inherits the Yautja's superior strength, resilience, and some anatomical features. The Predalien is substantially stronger and tougher than a human-spawned alien, easily tossing around full-grown predators and withstanding damage that would kill a normal drone. Its hide is thicker, its muscle density higher. Essentially, it's built like a predator, only more so, since xenomorph physiology tends to enhance host traits. The creature also inherited predator mandibles, dreadlocks, and even subtle internal traits. I already described how its blood coloration and heat signature differ from standard xenos, pointing us towards Yautja metabolism. However, it's important to note that the Predalien is still predominantly xenomorph. The creature's designers estimated it as 80% alien and 20% predator in composition. It does not, for instance, inherit the technological know-how or social structure of the predators. It's an alien mammalian organism through and through, just with a predator-flavored twist. What's the lifespan of a Predalien? Finally, it's worth mentioning the lifespan and final fate of a Predalien. In the known instances, none have lived very long. The Gunnison Predalien was wiped out by a tactical nuke mere hours after its birth, but had it survived, one imagines it would either molt into a queen or continue as an extraordinarily dangerous hive leader. Dark Horse comics and novels have toyed with the idea of predator xenomorph hive queens on other worlds, implying that such hybrids could potentially form full colonies, with one comic depicting a Predalien queen leading a massive hive on an alien planet. There's also the concept of Praetorian Predaliens, essentially ultra-elite warriors in a hive hierarchy, which some fan sources suggest. However, these remain speculative in the cinematic canon. Social awareness and leadership. Within the xenomorph hierarchy, Predaliens have been shown as both lone wolves and pack leaders, depending on circumstance. In some cases, for instance, the AVP Requiem Earth Predalien is essentially an alpha leading a hive, acting as a proto-queen. That Predalien actively began establishing a hive and an army of drones to protect it, which shows a high level of social coordination and leadership skills once it settled on Earth. It even asserted dominance over other xenomorphs, notably backhanding a drone aside so that it could be the one to impregnate a host in the sewer hive, so there could be no clearer sign of its authority in the pecking order. Conversely, other depictions, such as the game's Abomination on BG-386, show a Predalien operating completely solo, ignoring fellow xenomorphs and just hunting independently. In either case, the creature is highly adaptable. If it's the only alien around, it doesn't mind being solitary. If there's a hive to build, it has the nascent queen instincts to take charge. Capacity for reasoning. While not sapient in the way a human or Yautja is, the Predalien shows flashes of problem-solving and tactical thinking, much like the xenomorph queen from James Cameron's Aliens. Do you remember what she did? Let me know in the comments. Coming back to our Predalien, it can stalk and set ambushes, as seen when it silently stalked a predator who was skinning a trophy, then struck when the target was distracted. In combat, it's ferocious, but also opportunistic. During its final brawl with the elite predator Wolf, the Predalien paused and curiously waited while Wolf removed his biohelmet to fight hand to claw, which is kinda similar to the Predator's honorable duel behavior. Now, the question that arises is, was the Predalien actually recognizing the ritual of a fair fight, or just momentarily puzzled by Wolf's action? Either way, it didn't pounce immediately, which is unusual for an alien. It's possible the hybrid inherited just enough Predator ego to relish a one-on-one duel. Generally, however, the Predalien's reasoning centers on primal objectives: kill, reproduce, survive, rather than any complex strategy or tool use. It does not wield technology or set traps beyond the instinctual level. One thing that's for sure is, combined with its brute strength, even an average cunning intellect makes the Predalien extremely dangerous, arguably even more so than a typical xenomorph, since it can muscle through situations a normal drone would avoid. Emotional temperament. Like its progenitors, the Predalien is overwhelmingly aggressive and territorial. It doesn't exhibit human-like emotions, but one might infer a sort of feral confidence in its behavior. Having the predator's brawn, it often forgoes the stealth of a normal xeno in favor of direct confrontation. And the worst part is that the Predalien is aware of how powerful it is. I mean, imagine an adult cow. Those gentle giants don't know just how powerful they are and don't use their power against you. Else most humans would be paced if all cows decided to rule over us. Okay, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Now, the Predalien isn't afraid to charge head-on at heavily armed foes. It tangled with multiple predators in close quarters and later rampaged through armed human soldiers with equal disdain. If a xenomorph could ever be described as bold, the Predalien fits the bill. It also seems to take some sort of pleasure in dominating other life forms, a trait it might get from the Yautja side. Fortunately, that hybrid brain doesn't stretch to higher reasoning or language, so you won't find a Predalien hacking computers or giving villain monologues. Small comforts. Behavior. Apex hunter meets perfect organism. The Predalien's behavior is a deadly blend of xenomorph instinct and predator ferocity. Hunting is its primary mode. It actively seeks out prey, human or Yautja, and dispatches them with extreme prejudice. In the wild, a Predalien can function as an apex predator, stronger and tougher than nearly any life form it encounters. It uses a mix of hunting strategies. It can ambush from the shadows or simply bull rush and overpower victims. For example, on the Predator ship, it lurked in the rafters until one hunter was isolated, then struck with a surprise kill. But once unleashed in Gunnison, it didn't hide in a corner. It went on the offensive, openly rampaging through a hospital and slaughtering anything in its path. This creature's confidence in combat is sky high. It knows it can take on almost any opponent one-on-one. Hostility and combat. In terms of sheer hostility, the Predalien is off the charts. It shows zero hesitation in attacking predators or humans. In fact, it seems to particularly relish predator prey. I speculate it has a genetic vendetta, but it's more likely that the predators were simply the biggest threats around, and the Predalien neutralized them with extreme force, since xenomorphs often focus on eliminating threats above all. In AVP Requiem, the hybrid kills at least 3 Yautja. It quickly tore apart 2 Predator crewmen during the ship escape and later impaled the veteran Wolf Predator in their final duel, though Wolf was able to mortally wound it in return. These killing skills only highlight the fact that the Predalien can match an elite, experienced Predator in combat, a feat very few creatures can claim. Against humans, its aggression is just as high, if not higher. It treats human soldiers like cattle for the slaughter, or hosts for incubation. The Predalien also has no apparent fear or flight response. Cornered or injured, it becomes even more vicious, fighting until either it or its enemy is dead. Essentially, fight or flight for a Predalien is always fight. Interactions with other xenomorphs. Within a xenomorph hive, if one exists, the Predalien's behavior trends towards dominance. Lesser aliens, like the drones or warriors, appear to instinctively defer to the Predalien, perhaps sensing its queen potential. In Gunnison's nascent hive, no alien dared challenge Chet. On the contrary, one scene shows a drone stepping back after the Predalien shoves it aside. The Predalien did not display overt communication. Oh yeah, the xenomorphs can share pheromonal or telepathic signals in lore, but its actions were enough to establish hierarchy. The Predalien in AVP Requiem chose to personally perform tasks like impregnating hosts, a role usually reserved for a queen. This means that it perceived itself as the hive's reproductive alpha. If a mature queen had been present, a Predalien might have behaved differently. Some sources indicate that a Predalien could exist as a heavy assault warrior under a queen, but absent a queen, the Predalien's behavior shifts to fulfill that role, an adaptive trait for survival. Toward other xenomorphs, the Predalien is not overly hostile. I think they are its cousins, but it won't hesitate to enforce its will with physicality. There's no evidence of the hybrid harming fellow aliens beyond that jostling for dominance. Think of it as the meanest wolf in the pack, not eating the others, but making sure they know who's alpha. Interactions with predators. When it comes to Yautja, the Predalien behaves as a natural archenemy. Encounters are invariably lethal. The hybrid attacks predators on sight with an almost personal ferocity, perhaps due to a genetic memory of the species' long rivalry with xenomorphs, or simply because Yautja present the biggest challenge as prey. Predators, for their part, absolutely loathe the Predalien. In Yautja culture, a Predalien's very existence is a grave abomination, a blasphemy that they feel obligated to annihilate immediately. If word of a live Predalien reaches a predator clan, they will dispatch their most elite hunters to hunt it down at any cost, not for glory, but out of a sense of racial duty. There's no honor in the trophy. In fact, Yautja refused to keep a Predalien's head as a prize. They just want the creature erased. This dynamic played out in AVPR, where Wolf, an elder predator, travels alone to Earth purely to clean up the Predalien contamination. Interestingly, just as the Predalien shows a hint of predator instinct, Wolf shows a hint of personal vendetta. Their battle is vicious and intimate, and ends with Wolf yanking out the hybrid's inner jaws even as the Predalien's tongue and tail fatally stab him. Interactions with humans. For humans and other fauna unlucky enough to cross its path, the Predalien behaves like an apex xenomorph predator. It mostly sees humans as either prey or incubators, often both. In Gunnison, the creature rampaged through humans with casual brutality, slashing, head-biting, and tail-stabbing soldiers and civilians alike. When it needed hosts for reproduction, it specifically targeted humans that provided optimal incubation. Otherwise, it simply kills humans it encounters, often in graphic fashion. One could argue the predator influence makes the Predalien even more confrontational with humans than a typical alien. Where a normal xenomorph might snatch a lone human and cocoon them quietly, the Predalien was perfectly happy tearing through a squad of well-armed National Guardsmen in open combat. Its high resilience means it doesn't shy away from groups of humans either. Essentially, to a Predalien, people are walking meat snacks, either to be slaughtered immediately or used to breed more of its kind. There's no bargaining, no hesitation, and certainly no mercy. So yeah, that was all in this one, guys. I hope you liked it, and if you want to add some more info to this video, feel free to do that in the comments. See you in the next one. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.